Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Excited for today's guest. He is the CTO of Talent Marketplace. And what he does is he empowers people through the use of technology to help them do what they love and hopefully get paid for it, right? Happy to be rocking out today with Scott Hirsch. Hey, Scott, are you ready to rock?
Ready to rock. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here. So we always start off on a good note. So tell me a story of success that we can be inspired by.
For sure. So my story of success, it has to do with the initial founding of our company, Talent Marketplace. So what that actually looked like was a couple of my university friends phoned me up one day while I was working out as a Salesforce consultant. And one of them had a great idea for this new platform called Talent Marketplace, where we could directly connect some employers with job seekers. And so what that actually looked like was testing it out for about 6 months, talking to people, doing over 100 coffees with individuals. And then we took those coffees, the information that we got, and then we built out some simple wireframes. From there, we launched an MVP, which is literally just an Excel spreadsheet, something simple to get it to test out the product. And we got that in front of a couple of hiring managers who were able to make a couple of successful hires through that actual MVP of just an Excel spreadsheet. So that little success helped us gain confidence in the idea that we had. And from there, what we actually did was we all put in a little bit of money. We got our first site, our beta product launched within the next 3 months. And then we had our break even and recovered that money within the next 2 months after that. So within a span of about 5 months, we went from no product to having a product and to making a little bit of money off of it as well. So that's the story that we have of a short success that we had. And then from there, we've been able to grow the business a little bit more since then as well.
Well, that's pretty cool. It's not common that people see success that quickly. So congratulations on that. What do you think was the key to, getting to a positive state so quickly?
Yeah, I think the key to getting to a positive state so quickly was just the simplicity of what we were initially offering. So what was really key there was we didn't try to boil the ocean. We didn't try to run out and raise $1 million and build this amazing platform from day one, hire a whole bunch of developers or anything like that. The key was really just understanding the business need, the value that we could offer, and the pain points that the employers and the other users were seeing, and being able to hit on those with a very simple minimum viable product. And then once we're able to do that, then the traction started to come really quickly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, even what you said earlier about just having an Excel spreadsheet, like it didn't need to be fancy. You didn't need to have it all dressed up. It just had to do what it's supposed to do, right?
Totally, right? And people underestimate the power of Excel. I think it solves a lot of problems in life. So I think that's actually a great point to get good at that too.
I love Excel. I'm definitely an Excel nerd. I mean, I prefer looking at Excel to me, but I mean, for clients, okay, eventually you probably have to move away from that eventually, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like we couldn't exactly scale out an Excel spreadsheet to thousands of users or anything like that. So we did end up having to build a bit of a product for that, but we actually ended up offshoring that as well. So what we ended up doing there was, like we said, the 3 founders each put in about a few $1,000s each. And then we hired a developer out of Vietnam through a different online platform. And then we were able to get quite a good product. It turned around in a short period of time. Again, because we had done that initial work for talking to all those people, putting those wireframes together and designing the product really well. And then that allowed us to move really, really quickly too. So I think that as long as you have a very good idea of what you're trying to accomplish, you can offshore development and be really successful with it too.
Yeah, I think that's the key there, is that you have to have it really well spec'd, because I mean, not only is there going to be communication problems, but even if there wasn't communication problems, it's still difficult to get a designer to see what you see unless you have it exactly, laid out for them, right?
For sure. And it's like, I don't know, playing in a band or something like that. You guys want to all be on the same page. If you have to know what the song is going to be and which notes to hit and who's going to be doing what at what times, right? It's like, it's any good teamwork, really. I think that making sure that you have an idea of what you're trying to accomplish really makes it easier for everybody to get to the end goal.
Yep, exactly. So now, I mean, it hasn't been very long, but there's usually some bad notes along with the good notes too, things that don't go quite as planned. So I'm wondering, like, was there anything that didn't go as planned for you guys, during this journey? And, how could we avoid that?
Yeah, I think that so shortly thereafter, we wanted to continue development on the site. So I think the bad note that we hit here was the initial hire that I made for the first developer that we had on the platform was what I'll say a little bit rocky, right? Like it wasn't a complete failure or anything along those lines. But we ended up trying to rejig our registration process for the candidates coming onto the platform. And the specs were well designed and all that fun stuff too. We had some high fidelity wireframes that we were trying to develop out. But I think that I made a mistake in the hire in that the person that we hired was a little bit too junior and didn't necessarily have all the skills that they needed to complete the project on time. So we ended up going a little bit over time and over budget on that one by about 2 months on just the candidate registration piece there. So I think that we kind of got into this situation where I was like, oh, it's just another couple of weeks. Let's, just keep pushing. Oh, it's another couple of weeks. Just keep pushing kind of thing, right? But we ended up getting stuck on a few different technical challenges. And honestly, like I didn't know how to resolve them and this developer didn't know how to resolve them. So it was a bit of a challenge to kind of get over that hurdle. So the way that we ended up actually kind of overcoming that was we had to pull on another senior developer, pay them a little bit of like mentorship hours and stuff like that. And then that person was able to assist this junior developer in completing this project. But we ended up going a little bit over time and over budget. And it was definitely a learning experience for me as well to make sure that when we are hiring for certain positions that they have the skills and the expertise that they need in order to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. So now if you were to do it over again, would you hire both people at the same time, or would you just have hired the senior person alone?
I think I would have hired the senior person alone and I would have structured it differently too. We brought this junior developer on as a full-time staff person. I think that I would have actually taken the approach that we kind of used to build out the initial part of the site, but maybe with a local developer or something like that instead. And what I mean by that is fully scope out the project that we're trying to build out, get those wireframes together, get those requirements together, and then contract out that senior developer to do that. I think we would have been able to turn it around a lot more quickly and also perhaps at a higher quality too.
Yeah. This is a really, really common mistake. I see it all the time. I mean, my background is in programming. I have a degree in computer science, so that's what I did. It's funny how many times I hear people going, well, the senior person is just way too expensive. So, why don't I get a junior person? And I think the thought process is like, yeah, I know it'll probably take a little bit longer, but it'll get done and it'll be cheaper. So maybe I'll save some money there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work that way, as you know now, because when they get stuck, they just don't know how to get through it. And you're going to end up having to go pay somebody to go teach this person to do it anyway. Right.
Exactly. Right. And like my hope was this person would learn along the way. They would, gain the skills and figure it out kind of thing. But that's not always the case. Like you can genuinely run into a problem that you just don't know how to solve and you're just fully blocked basically forever unless you have somebody else that's able to come in. Right. Yeah. And because we're a small company too, it's just we don't have a whole bunch of resources around just lying around like Amazon or Microsoft or something like that. I'd be able to pop in and say like, oh, the documentation over here tells you how to do it, or oh, this senior person can help you out. Right.
Yeah. And this is such a tough challenge to get through because you never know, like, because depending on the project that you're hiring for, you could get away with a junior person doing exactly what you just said. They might be able to learn it. They might be able to go through, but you don't know that going into it unless you have the background to understand it. Like, I mean, I know that I can hire a junior person to do a certain job because I know how hard it is versus another job that I'm like, no, I'm going to need a senior person for this one. But you wouldn't as a business owner unless you have that background. So, you're probably better off to play it safe, hire the senior person. And, I mean, you might be able to get away with hiring two people at the same time too. You could hire somebody as a mentor, right?
Yeah.
But,
and you're absolutely right there, right? Because I think that there's another piece around that too, which is just basically the cost and the time piece, right? So like, for example, if I hire a junior developer for 6 months and pay them $10,000, whatever, the same, $10,000 could be spent on a senior person who could accomplish it maybe in 3 months or something like that too, right? So it's kind of like this time cost savings. There is, like you said earlier on, like a bit of a misconception that, oh yes, senior talent's more expensive, but they will probably be able to get it done faster, better, and ultimately not necessarily cheaper, but like in a shorter period of time. And that time savings ultimately is perhaps more important than the money.
Yeah. And maybe just for people's understanding about how this works is that oftentimes a senior person, I know in my world, I do have junior people that I can offload some of the simpler stuff to. So, it may not all get done by that senior person. That senior person is also running a business. And so they probably have somebody that they can get to do some of the grunty type stuff, right? And so overall, the project is more or less managed by that senior person, which is what you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think that it was a really cool learning experience to see how that actually worked out in real life. Because as soon as we brought that senior person in who was able to provide some of that mentorship and direction, it's really clear to see that, they had just a wealth of experience that they were able to share, not only with the junior person, but when they actually got onto the code base too, they said like, oh yeah, like this part's easy. I would parse this out to like, somebody junior or something like that. But like, this is the challenging technical part. And this is how I figured this piece out.
Yep. And that is an interesting thing to say, because most senior people don't want to do junior work. So
Yeah.
so it's not like they're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to do all this junior work and charge them a boatload of money for it. They don't even want to do it. Like, we're just like, no. You hire somebody to do this stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, I don't want to change the color on 10 buttons and write, the paragraphs. I want to
Oh,
like do the interesting technical stuff. Right.
absolutely. They want to structure the thing, and then if you have somebody on staff, they'll send it to them, or they'll hire somebody to do that, all that other stuff. So yeah, good. That's a really cool conversation, because I don't get that very often, and it's really, really important when you're starting off, if you need to hire somebody with some technical skills that you don't already have, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on. So now we talk about the jam room quite often on this show. I mean, obviously. And what I mean by that in the context of a business is just your home office. So when we get started, sometimes we have to find some place to do the work, and I'm wondering, how did you structure your home office when you got started?
Yeah, for sure. So even from the beginning of when we initially started Talent Marketplace, I knew that we wanted to set up the company to enable all workers to work from home. So initially, when I set up my home office or the jam room here, I had a small little desk, my like one monitor and my desktop computer kind of all set up. And like that was sufficient just to get things going. But as COVID kind of rolled out here and we became a little bit more permanent work from home type folks, and we realized like, oh, the home office setup is actually going to be used the majority of the time as opposed to the office and the laptop. Then I started to build out my home office a little bit more so here. So like I am, full disclosure, in my bedroom, but I've kind of angled it away a little bit so you don't necessarily like see some of the like the bed or anything like that in the normal camera or something like that. But in terms of the office setup, I have two large monitors, one on each side. Like you could fit, for like Word documents or something like that, side by side, quite easily there. I have my camera on top of my monitors as well. Some speakers for some just general kind of music or anything else that might need some noise coming out, but obviously a good pair of headphones for any of the calls that you're taking. And just slightly out of screen here, you can see I have a simple cheap mic, but it helps bring the sound quality up for anything as well. So instead of speaking through your or my camera microphone, this one helps to make the audio quality a little bit better so people can hear you hopefully a little bit more clearly too. In addition to that, like I actually have a separate desktop computer that is a little bit more powerful too. And that helps to, speed up some of the more like intensive programs that are running on the computer at the sometimes. Like sometimes they'll be doing some coding and running some virtual environments and things like that. That might be a little bit heavy. So that helps to speed that thing up as well. And then obviously like separate keyboard and mouse and making sure the ergonomics of my chair and stuff like that are nice and comfortable so that I don't necessarily get sore or tired from sitting all day. And that's generally what I have for my jam room.
Yeah, and it's all stuff that you don't think of when you first get started, but it's all super important, like the ergonomics of it, right? If you're going to be sitting in a chair all day, when you go work at a company, they tend to either care about that or not. But if they do care about that, they get chairs that, but I mean, when you're thinking about working at home, I mean, you might take a kitchen chair, a wooden chair, sit on it. That's not going to work out for you very, very long if you want to sit on that for any length of time, right?
For sure, right? But I think that even going back to our previous conversation around like a minimum viable product and just like figuring it out and getting something like out there as quickly as possible, it's kind of like, okay, day one, you have to use the kitchen chair and the kitchen table just to get going and try out this work from home thing. Then you realize a day or two later, it's like, oh man, this chair is real hard and uncomfortable. Let's go out and, upgrade a little bit, find maybe a secondhand chair or something like that. If you're a little bit more price sensitive off of Facebook Marketplace or something like that, pull that in, get that a little bit more of that ergonomics, and then you get that extra monitor, and then you find that new table or that little corner of the room that's a little bit better. And you just like incrementally improve upon it. And I think that just generally that approach to whatever it is, your jam room in your home office, or if it's like building a product or something like that, I think that really helps to just incrementally make day-to-day better.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that you've got to keep in mind that you want your health. Health is up high because if you're not healthy, then you're not going to get much work done, but also the productivity as well. So if you can kind of balance that, I mean, if you're productive and healthy at the kitchen table, great.
Yeah.
Uh, because like, I mean, you don't necessarily need to go out there and buy all the state of the line, top of the line, equipment when you first get started in your home business, right?
No, for sure. And I think that honestly, I'm a big proponent of secondhand stuff. So like I like buy monitors and other like peripherals for our office that we do still have, as well as like for my home office too. And I think that, it's good for the environment, it's good for the pocketbook. And no, like personally, I don't see a huge difference between like, the newest brand new monitor that you spend $500 on versus, one that's like a few years old that you can spend $100 on off like Facebook Marketplace or something along those lines. And yeah, exactly. Like as long as you're keeping your health in mind and you're being super productive with the tools that you have, make do. It works.
Yeah. Well, and the analogy you can use with like, equipment for a band, for a musician is that, the guitar does not need to be a $6,000 guitar in order for you to be able to play effectively. But it also can't be a guitar with the strings way, way out, like terrible action, and like you're hurting your fingers if you're trying to play it, or you can't get it in tune, right? Like, I mean, it's got to be, good enough that it'll stay in tune and you're able to play it, but not too crazy, right? You can work to that later, but that's more of a luxury rather than a necessity.
Yeah, totally. Right. And I think it also has to suit whatever needs that you're applying it to, too. So, like in the case of a guitar, right? Like, are you going out and playing stadiums full of 50,000 people and maybe it makes sense to get that top of the line one, right? Or are you playing, just a hobbyist playing at home or something like that? So you don't need something so fancy because nobody basically is ever going to hear you
Yep.
or something along those lines, right? So it's the same with the home office too.
Yep.
I think it's kind of like, my monitor serves the needs that I have for it and my mouse does the same thing. It's not necessarily the top line one, but it's also not necessarily the cheapest one either.
Yep. So let's talk about the band. So now, when you're starting anything, when you're starting a music career or a business, you're going to need to put yourself around the right people. And I'm wondering, like, how do you approach finding the right people to be in your band?
Yeah, that's a great question. So finding the right people to be in your band can be one of the biggest challenges. And honestly, that's what we do at Talent Marketplace. We're kind of lucky in that sense that we're kind of in the recruitment industry. So we're pretty good at finding great people. And that's actually really been one of our strong suits for when we've been recruiting internally too. So one of the keys for finding some of those great people is just being open to finding more junior people with the right attitude for learning, right? So like, of course, we had that previous story around where we had a bit of a challenge around not being able to overcome a certain technical challenge. But that being said, if we set up the jobs correctly for some of these junior folks to say like, you know what, try to figure this out. If you don't figure it out, it's okay. We have this other way around it or something like that. Then that really opens up the scope of talent that you're able to bring onto your team. If you're more open to some of that junior talent, you really can find some really young, hungry, great learners that are really excited to get into your company, learn about the values and the vision of the company, and execute really hard to drive what you're trying to accomplish. And that has really been one of the ways that we've found some of the best talent for our team so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think junior people, like, especially if you have the right attitude on them, like they are going to grow with you, right? So they're totally, totally important. You don't necessarily want to have too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, for sure. And they see the opportunity too, right? Because again, as a small company, we don't have, a specific person for every little specific job within the company. So what that means is every single person has to be a bit of a generalist and figure a whole bunch of different things out, right? And so giving particularly more junior people the freedom to explore and try new things and say like, okay, yeah, like, yes, you're here to write code, but also please, write the documentation, do the data integrations, work with the rest of the team, lead this project, try out these new things, right? Go experiment with that technology, whatever it might be. They're really excited to do those things because it gets them a really broad range of experience and they can say, oh, I like this piece of it. I don't like that piece of it. I want to focus more in this area. And then they can help, they develop their careers. And as they're developing the careers, it helps the business grow too. So like, it's kind of really a win-win in my mind.
Love it. Love it. So now what about instruments? We talked about them a little bit earlier, but What other tools do you use that bring success to your business and to you?
Yeah, so this is kind of one of my favorite ones here because I'm a passionate technologist and like I really like the different tools and systems that we have at our company, right? So one, we have our main platform and system there, but that's fully integrated with another CRM tool called Salesforce. And I'm a big lover of Salesforce because in my previous job, I was a consultant doing implementations of Salesforce for other companies. And I did that same thing for talent marketplace too. So Salesforce is really where our company lives our day-to-day lives. That's how we track all our data, keep track of our candidates, what our to-do lists are, et cetera, et cetera. And then in addition to that, we have a whole bunch of other like kind of little internal tools that we use. We're like a Google Suite kind of family. So we tend to use Google Docs and Google Meet and Gmail and things like that for our internal communications. And Slack is also a really cool one there too. And what we've actually done with all those pieces is we integrated them together, right? So like our Google Suite is integrated with Salesforce so that like our calendars and stuff like that are pulled into the system. Salesforce is integrated with Google Drive and also and Slack as well. And so what that actually means is it's like when an update happens in Salesforce, it gets pushed to Slack. When an update happens on Google Drive, it also kind of gets pushed to Slack there. So like all those tools play really well together, almost like a band or something like that, so that we're able to stay on top of our day-to-day tasks.
That's really cool. So yeah, I like how you made that analogy there. You've got like a band of tools that work well together. That's really cool. Now,
Yeah.
is this something like how did you? I suppose you used to work for Salesforce, so that's how you knew, right? That they work well together.
Yeah, for the most part, that's one of the reasons there for sure. But I actually really think that one of the most important pieces is exactly what you're saying. It's kind of like making sure that these tools actually integrate together and work well together is super important. It's really common for companies or something like that to say like, okay, I need an email solution over here, and I need a CRM over there, and I need a document management thing over here. And they don't necessarily play super well together. And it's kind of like, a band that is warming up or something like that instead, right? It's kind of like, oh, the guitarist is doing their own thing over here, and then drummer's doing their own thing over there, and the pianist is doing their own thing over there. And it's kind of like, it doesn't quite sound right when they're warming up, right? It's not a cohesive band. But if you can get them all integrated together, working together, then you really can make music a lot better.
Yeah, and you get more productivity from your people as well because they, have a system to follow, right?
Yes, absolutely, right? They know they can rely on the notifications coming from different systems at different times. It increases their productivity because they know where to find things. And yeah, and it all links together. So it's like if I click the link in Slack, that'll take me directly to Salesforce. I don't even need to think about it.
Right on. Good. So now that's awesome. So now I'm wondering, it's time for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
Yeah, we're doing some really cool development on the platform. So I'm super excited for what's going to be happening over the next few months. Right now, the main project that we're working on is an enhancement to the employer profile. We're going to be providing a lot more recruitment metrics and insights over how the search process is actually going to the employer users. So like we have this cool little like talent funnel widget that shows like how many candidates we've contacted, how many have made the profiles, how many have been interviewed, and how many ultimately have been hired. And that's really going to provide a lot more visibility into the hiring process and the time savings and conversion rates that are carrying through for that individual employer and that individual role. There's also going to be some machine learning and artificial intelligence to help recommend where that could be improved to say like, oh, we've reached out to a whole bunch of candidates, but like a very few of them are actually making their profiles. Maybe there's something about the job description that we could adjust to entice some more people and improve that conversion rate. So that's one of the big ones that's coming up over the next little while. And then in addition to that, we are also going to be revamping kind of like our find talent page is what we call it. So that's the actual search page of where employers are able to input, some details about their job, find candidates that are ready to work. And we're going to be trying to incorporate some more of our machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms to help make that selection process a little bit easier. Right now, it's kind of a big box and you can select different criteria and stuff like that. And it's sufficient, it works. But I really want it to be almost like a more Google style approach where it's kind of like, okay, it's like one text box. You can say like, I want a junior developer in C# or something like that. And then that'll spit out the exact things that you need.
Okay. So now what type of people are you looking for on both sides of it? So what types of employers are you would be a good fit? And also what kinds of employees would be a good fit for Talent Marketplace?
Yeah, so the employers that would make the best fit for our company are anyone from, roughly about 20 to 30 people in the company up to like several thousand. So we tend to cross industries and sizes really well, but we play within the IT project management space. So what that really means is project managers, business analysts, coordinators, developers, administrators, things like that. Those are the roles that employers that we work with typically hire for. So anyone that kind of plays in that space is really a good target for us. Like we have clients in healthcare and construction and consulting and IT implementations and things like that, but they all kind of are hiring for that similar type of role.
Yeah.
And then the employee side, so anyone that kind of fits that kind of role would be a good fit as well. So like developers, administrators, software engineers, project managers, analysts, things like that. That are looking for work, and typically within North America. So like most of our market is focused within the West Coast of Canada right now. We do have some business back east in Canada, or kind of Toronto, Ontario, that area. And then we're also expanding down into the States as well. So anyone that's kind of mostly in North America and is legally entitled to work within either Canada or the United States would be the best fit to be coming onto the Talent Marketplace platform.
Right on. Yeah, the industry doesn't really matter because everybody has an IT department nowadays.
Yeah, so true, right? Like honestly, like if you don't have an IT department, like how do I frame this? I normally frame this as like every company is a technology company.
Yeah.
If you're not, I don't know how long you can last like that. But
yeah, there's going to be some struggles, I think, in the near, 20 years or whatever, for if you don't have any type of IT going on, right? Yeah.
For sure, right. And I think that particularly COVID showed that quite a bit, right? It's kind of like companies had to immediately switch to work from home, or like companies that are traditionally not super technology focused, like let's say restaurants or something like that, suddenly had to get on whatever the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes and stuff like that, so that they could be sustaining their businesses. So it's like every business, in my opinion, needs a little bit more technology.
Yep, agree. Which is great for us.
Yeah.
So where do we find more information about it?
Yeah, so the easiest place to find more information about Talent Marketplace is just going to www.talentmarketplace.ca. If you plug in Talent Marketplace into Google, all as one word will come up there as well. Otherwise, you can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and all the regular social media places. I'm easy to reach, and all our contact information is on those sites too. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or anything like that.
Right on. So talentmarketplace.com. Thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Scott. This has been a lot of fun.
No worries. My pleasure, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Great. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.